Hi, this is Sarit Switzer, and welcome to the It Is Taught podcast, a podcast devoted to the teachings of Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi as recorded in his most famous work, the Tanya. My hope for this show is to make these teachings accessible and relatable to the average person, regardless of prior Jewish education or affiliation. The episodes follow the prescribed daily study portions and are meant to serve as practical lessons in how to live your life as your true self and develop an authentic and powerful relationship with your Creator. I have personally experienced the effects the study of this work has had on me, and I'm excited to share what I can of this knowledge with you. So please join me on this journey of learning, self-growth, and connection with your source. Hi, and welcome to the It Is Taught podcast. This is episode 703 for the 11th of Cheshvan in a regular year. So in the past couple of episodes, I had brought up the idea of Bitcoin mining, which once again, I am far from an expert in understanding how Bitcoin mining works. However, the one thing that I do know and that I had brought up is that there are 21 million Bitcoins in total in the entire world. And that the process of Bitcoin mining is the processes of uncovery of these 21 million Bitcoins so that they can come into circulation into the general use, into the general population. The way that Bitcoin mining happens is a very complex process where numerous computers and programs are involved, where these computers solve very complicated mathematical equations that take up a lot of energy, a lot of resources, and all of that. But the basic idea is that there are, the way that Bitcoin was set up is that there are 21 million Bitcoins in total. That's it. There's never going to be more Bitcoins that will ever be created. And these Bitcoins need to be mined out. One mistake that I had made, I think in either yesterday's episode or the episode before that, is I said that at this point in time, there are about 12 million Bitcoins that have been mined. I actually looked it up, and it looks like that as of August 2022, and it looks like even now we're in November 2022, there's a little over 19 million Bitcoins that have been mined. So it's a little more than 12 million Bitcoins. So in any case, 19 million, a little over 19 million Bitcoins have been mined at this point in time. So the question comes up, what happens when all the Bitcoins are mined? What happens when we've mined all the Bitcoins and there's no more left to go? So first of all, most obviously, Bitcoin miners will be out of a job, most likely. Like there won't, or there'll have to be some kind of like tweak in the way that Bitcoin mining can be profitable, because as of now, there's a reward for people who are engaged in Bitcoin mining. Anytime you mine Bitcoin, you're rewarded financially for this. So that's going to stop after all the Bitcoins are mined. There's going to be no more Bitcoins left to mine. So then what? Then what happens? So we know that ultimately this is actually the purpose. The point is to have all the Bitcoins mined. And at that time when all the Bitcoins are mined, in fact, the value of Bitcoin is actually going to go up tremendously, because then we'll have all of the Bitcoins that are in existence. They are all in circulation, and then we'll really have a sense of the limited supply of Bitcoin, and it's going to be really seen as this very hot commodity that you can only get through another person, right? So the value is going to go up tremendously. So why am I talking about this? Why am I talking about Bitcoin? What does this have to do with the Tanya? What's going on over here? So if you recall, if you've been listening to the past couple of episodes, the imagery of Bitcoin mining is what came to mind for me when we were discussing this idea of redeeming the godly sparks that are found throughout our existence. We've been having this discussion about the shattering of the vessels. So just for a little recap, what happened was in the beginning of the creation of our world, there was this event that happened, which was we refer to it in Kabbalah as the shattering of the vessels, where the godly sparks were shattered all throughout the world. And it's our job in the world to elevate these sparks back to their place out of captivity. So these sparks fell into the world. They became captive in what are known as the klipos, the husks, which concealed godliness. And our job is to redeem these sparks. And each person in their lifetime has certain sparks that relate specifically to their soul mission. And what we've been discussing is the power that Torah study, specifically the study of Jewish law, specifically the study of Gemara and Mishnah, this whole back and forth debate kind of process that we have in Jewish law, how this process really is this, what this accomplishes is the redemption of these sparks from out of captivity. And yesterday we spoke about the idea of one really big way to redeem these sparks out of captivity is not just engaging the study just in a kind of passive way, but to actually come up and reveal Torah insights through this process. So we're sort of just like people Bitcoin mine Bitcoin. Here we are mining divine sparks, right? We're uncovering the divine sparks. So then the same question comes up that we had with Bitcoin when it came to Bitcoin. What we know that in total, there are 288 sparks that shattered. And again, just like Bitcoin, with Bitcoin, yes, there are 20 million Bitcoins in existence, but the Bitcoins can be subdivided. So a lot of people own like small percentages of Bitcoin. So too, lahavdil, obviously with the sparks, 288 sparks, these sparks are subdivided and broken down further into many, many different components. So there are lots and lots and lots of sparks throughout the world that we are, as Jews, our job is to go and elevate these sparks. What happens after we elevate all the sparks? What happens when we actually innovate and bring out the Torah insights completely? What happens at that point when we've mined all of the godly sparks? Then what? So that is the topic of today's Tanya. That's exactly what we're going to be learning about today, is what happens after all of these sparks have been redeemed, have been elevated. Will we still have to engage in Torah study at that time? Will we still need to do mitzvahs at that time? There's certain people have a certain misconception. I'll say that at that time, which we know of as the days of Mashiach, we won't actually have to do mitzvahs anymore. We won't have to engage in Torah study. And as we'll learn, that's absolutely false. That's actually not true at all. But the focus of our Torah study and our consciousness actually will be very different than it is right now. So let's get into the text and see how the Alter Rebbe explains this, and we can discuss a little bit more as we go. So for context, again, we're in the middle of Epistle 26, and today we're going to be concluding Epistle 26, and this is part of the Iggeres HaKodesh section of the Tanya. And so now the Alter Rebbe begins, and he says, when the Shechina gets out of Klipas Noga, so or out of the klipos, out of these husks. So when they're finally extracted, we've mined all of the sparks of the Shechina out from the klipa. After this extraction of all of the sparks, then what happens during that time is that the evil, the negativity gets separated from the good, and a way that this is poetically referred to is from Tehillim chapter 92 verse 10, where it says, Yitpardu kol poale aven, that all the workers of evil will be dispersed. So at that time, then the tree of knowledge of good and evil will no longer be dominant, because the good will have departed from it. Right? So it's like this, we've been referencing the confusion of our world to the tree of knowledge. We've been referring to it as the tree of knowledge of good and evil. But once we redeem the sparks, then this tree of knowledge of good and evil, the good gets taken away from it. The good gets elevated back to its place. So at that time, what's going to happen then is that learning Torah and mitzvahs, the purpose of learning Torah and mitzvahs will no longer be in order to extract these sparks, because we've already extracted all the sparks, but rather, what's the purpose going to be? Now the purpose is going to be to affect higher unities and to draw down lights, very supernal lights that are higher than the world of Atzilus, as the Arizal of blessed memory explained. And all of this is through the inner aspect of the Torah, what's known as the Pnimius HaTorah. This is the more mystical dimension of the Torah, like the Kabbalah, Chassidus, that kind of thing. And what does this mean? This means to fulfill the mitzvahs with higher purpose, with a higher kavana, that have to do with having different intentions that relate to the supernal lights. Because the source of the mitzvahs above is high up there in the infinite one, blessed be he. So this might sound kind of abstract, and it is pretty abstract because it's not something that we can really relate to right now. But basically what the Alter Rebbe is saying is that when finally all of these sparks have been redeemed, then no longer will we need to engage in Torah study in order to redeem these sparks, in order to mine these sparks, clarify the sparks, but rather now we're going to be accomplishing something much higher. We're going to be, through our Torah study, we're going to be focusing on a more supernal kind of unity that's happening. So again, maybe not to take the Bitcoin analogy too far, but maybe we could say lahavdil, it's sort of like once all the Bitcoins have been mined, then all it's going to be about is actually doing different kinds of transactions with the Bitcoins. Now we can use the Bitcoins fully and completely in a much higher way than we can right now. Okay, now the Alter Rebbe has in parentheses, he explains where the misconception comes from, that people think that in this time, which we know of as the time of Mashiach, there won't be any more mitzvahs. He says that we actually see in the Gemara in Masechet Nida, page 61b, it says, mitzvot betelot la'atid lavo, that the mitzvahs will be nullified in the future. So this seems to imply that we won't do mitzvahs anymore in the future, right? So the Alter Rebbe says this is a reference to the time of Tchias HaMesim. This is of the time of the resurrection of the dead, which comes later. That's after the Messianic times. But during the Messianic times, which come before the resurrection of the dead, the mitzvahs are definitely not nullified, says the Alter Rebbe. And he says that this is why during this time of Mashiach, going back to the main text, the main aspect, the focus of learning Torah is going to be specifically on the pnimius of the mitzvahs, on the inner dimension of the mitzvahs, like the inner dimension of the Torah and the mitzvahs, and the secret reasons why we do these mitzvahs. So it's not going to be so much, the focus won't be so much on like, what are the mitzvahs? Do you do it in this way? What type of tefillin strap should you use? What length should it be? When do you put it on, that kind of thing. But it's rather going to be more a focus on the inner dimension. Why do we wear tefillin? Why do we keep Shabbos? Why do we keep kosher? That kind of thing. But because the revealed aspect is going to be revealed and known to every Jewish person with a knowledge that is unforgettable. So we're just going to know, like, when do you have to bring in Shabbos? Is this plate kosher? Is it not kosher? So as a whole, Jews will not need to be involved so much in the nitty gritty of the mitzvahs. However, there will be a group called the Erev Rav that will still need to be involved in this. So the Erev Rav, to be honest, I don't really know who they are. It literally translates to mean mixed multitude, and the origin of that is back in the time of Egypt. When we escaped from Egypt, there was a group of people that escaped from Egypt who didn't like fully take on being Jewish in a full way. They sort of had like a mixture of the Egyptianness still within them. So nowadays, I don't think anybody can say who these people are specifically, but suffice it to say, the Alter Rebbe is saying that there is this group still of the mixed multitude, the Erev Rav, and he says that these people will still need to be involved in this more nitty-gritty study of the laws, because they will not have merited to have tasted from the tree of life, which is the inner dimension of the Torah and the mitzvahs, and so they will still need to be involved in the Torah of the Mishnah in order to weaken through their study the Sitra Achra, that is the other side, the side of negativity that's stuck to them through learning Torah, so that it won't lead them to sin. So there's going to be this group that's still not totally perfected, that's still not totally clarified, that will still need to be involved in this. And the Alter Rebbe says that perhaps this is what Yeshayahu refers to in Yeshayahu chapter 65, verse 20, where it says, "V'achoteh ben mea shana yuklal," that the sinner at the age of 100 will be cursed. So the Alter Rebbe says this is a reference to the sinners from amongst the Erev Rav. It's not talking about Jewish people at that time. And really, practically speaking, these people will still need to know about the different laws relating to what is forbidden and impurity more than Jewish people, because for Jewish people, this won't apply anymore. We won't have states of impurity and forbiddenness, because no sin will ever befall the righteous. So this is a quote from Mishlei, chapter 12, verse 20, where it says, "Lo ye'uneh La tzadik kol aven." So no wrong shall be caused for the righteous. So at that time, Jewish people will not sin, will naturally just be serving God in a perfect kind of way. So again, lahavdil, to go back to the Bitcoin analogy, I just keep thinking about it, is that perhaps, I don't know, but perhaps this also is the analogy of that at the 21 million Bitcoins, there's sort of like this understanding that even though, yes, there are 21 million Bitcoins out there to be mined, there's a certain segment of them that most probably will never get mined for whatever reason. So even probably at a certain point when we kind of like, there's a consensus in the world that all quote unquote Bitcoins have been mined, there's still going to be a certain subset of Bitcoins that still have not been mined. And perhaps there will still be some Bitcoin miners there that are still involved in that toil of trying to mine those final Bitcoins, right? Just like there's still going to be this mixed multitude in the time of Mashiach that's still going to have to be involved in this toil. Okay. Now, the Alter Rebbe it goes on here and he says that also, in addition to this whole idea that we know the Jews are naturally going to be keeping Torah and mitzvahs and they're never going to sin, they're just going to be in this more kind of natural state of keeping the Torah, it's also possible that the way that this is going to happen is that through the study of the inner dimension of the Torah, and they're going to understand all of the revealed aspects of the Torah, like was the case with Avraham Avinu, with our forefather Avraham, may peace be upon him, that he was able to, just through studying the inner aspect of the Torah, he knew everything, because Avraham existed before the actual like technical giving of the Torah, right? The giving of the Torah came many, at least years later, but yet somehow Avraham knew everything in the Torah, and this is because he had a connection with the inner aspects of the Torah. So we see this with many great Rebbeim as well, like the Rebbe. It was known that how did he have so much knowledge about so many things in the world, like things that he never, different countries, different types of disciplines and things that he never encountered. It's because he had this deep understanding of Kabbalah, this deep understanding of Chassidus, that through that deep understanding, it's like you're going to the root. When you understand that depth, you understand everything that flows out from that depth, which includes all of the more revealed aspects of the Torah laws. And so this is why, going back to the text, this is why, since we'll all be more involved in this more inner aspect of learning Torah, we won't have to be involved in at all with the more outer dimensions of the Torah, which is different, says the Alter Rebbe, than it was in the time of the Second Temple, where people did have to be involved more in the study of these more Torah laws, not only for practical application, but also because this was the main purpose of their service, in order to weaken the power of the Sitra Achra at that time and to elevate the sparks of holiness through Torah and through service, as we explained elsewhere about all of this. And so now, after understanding all of this, it will be well understood with this earlier quoted passage from the Rea Mehemna that we started off this epistle with, right? Where we talked about this tree of knowledge of good and evil. Now we can understand that what is this a reference to, this tree of knowledge of good and evil? This was not a reference to Mishnah, Gemara, that kind of thing, that part of the Torah, which many people mistakenly thought it to be, but rather it's a reference to Klipas Nogai. It's a reference to this world, and this is the main thing, as is written in the Eitz Chaim. And this is suffice for the understanding. So that's the conclusion of the epistle today. And so again, just in conclusion, to bring it all together, is that original passage from the Ram and Hamna that talks about the tree of knowledge of good and evil, it's this tree of knowledge of good and evil is not a reference to the Mishnah and Gemara, which are part of Torah, which is the tree of life, but rather it's a reference to the subject matter of the Mishnah and the Gemara, which is the nitty-gritty of our world. And then in the times of Mashiach, just to conclude, will be when all of the godly sparks have been mined, just like all the Bitcoins will be mined, then we will come to a place of not needing to be so involved in the nitty-gritty of the halachos and things like that, because we'll know these things more naturally. And so perhaps this is my own little idea, maybe my own little like wish for the world. We're so close. We're like over 19 million Bitcoins have already been mined. Perhaps this process of mining Bitcoin will parallel the revelation of Mashiach soon in our days, that maybe when all of the Bitcoins will be mined, then that will be a sign that all of the godly sparks in the world will be mined. I don't know. I'm just putting it out there. And as we've learned, we actually don't even need to have all 21 million Bitcoins to be mined to have considered that all of them have been mined, because that's most probably not going to happen, which means that Mashiach can really come at any day, at any moment, because we're already past the 19 million Bitcoin mark. There's less than 2 million Bitcoins left to go. And who knows, maybe we'll reach the end point very soon before you know it. So with that blessing for Mashiach to come very, very soon and shortly and be revealed very soon, I'll leave you with that. And we'll continue tomorrow when we begin a new epistle, Epistle 27, and I will speak to you then. Thanks for listening to the It Is Taught podcast, hosted by Sarit Switzer. This podcast is dedicated in loving memory of my maternal grandfather, Avraham Yitzchak ben Binyamin HaKohen of blessed memory. Music by Shoshana. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to support the show, please share it with others and subscribe on YouTube, Apple iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And make sure to leave us a 5-star review. To find out more about the It Is Taught project, including more information on my soon-to-be published book, please visit our website, itistaught.com. To catch the latest from me, follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Looking forward to speaking with you tomorrow, and until then, have a great day.